Appamada and its programs are supported by your generosity, and your generosity and support makes such a difference. You can find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone this morning. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the other folks and other sanghas in Madison, England, Switzerland, Alpine, Chicago, Hawaii, Wisconsin, that's the new one. Okay, so welcome to all of you, both online and on site. Before I start the talk, I'd like to make an announcement. I'm having a hard time figuring out where to look. It's going to take me a while. I want to look at people, and anyway, so bear with me. Anyway, so I'd like to make an announcement about the upcoming One Day Sit Plus that's occurring next weekend. It starts on Friday at 7 p.m. and goes through 9 p.m. and then starts again on Saturday at 8 a.m. and goes to about 4:10 on Saturday afternoon. So the topic, I'll be leading that, and the topic will be themes around spiritual ecology and including seeing the sacred in nature. So come one, come all. You're more than welcome. I also wanted to point out that today, if I didn't already say it, is the solstice, which is exciting, summer solstice. That means today is the longest day of the year, shortest night, therefore the shortest night. So we have a full day today. Lots of opportunities to do things today. We have more hours to do it. And also, this is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to those who that pertains to. All right, then. To get started, today's talk Today's talk was going to be about generosity, just generosity generally, and I got fascinated about one particular aspect of generosity, and this is fearlessness. And this is discussed in Norm Fisher's book, The World Could Be Otherwise. And it's discussed within the context of generosity. But I find it particularly interesting, so I want to start there instead of talking about it at the end. So, it's within the context of types of giving. So there's material gifts, there's spiritual teachings and inspiration, and then there's giving fearlessness. That's the third one. Anyway, so first of all, I'd like to ask, so what is fearlessness, and how does one offer it to others? So definition, standard online definition for fearlessness is without fear, but doesn't help a whole lot, or the quality of mind enabling one to face danger or hardship resolutely. That's a pretty good definition. I like that. So Norm Fisher talks about fearlessness as a gift that is actually less complicated than the other two, the material gifts and spiritual teaching and inspiration. It's less complicated because it does not involve giving a thing. Instead, what you're doing is you're giving your heart. You're giving a feeling. It's almost more direct in a way. So you give fearlessness by giving love, because when one feels love, they feel confidence. You can see this in like kids, or maybe in students or such relationships like that, how important that is. And part of that gift is to give others a sense that they matter, that they're respected, that they're cared for, and that they're secure within a loving reality, and therefore they're protected. I just was so wowed by that idea that it is so important for people to feel that they matter. I can't imagine, maybe this is my personal issue, I don't know, but it's so important, and to see that as one of the gifts that we're talking about in Buddhism. It's just found that really interesting. By the way, there are many other needs, basic human needs, but these are part of them according to nonviolent communication, which I've been doing a lot of study of, and it's in the research or in the literature. And the reasons behind most people's behavior is actually in their trying to get needs, their basic needs met, of which this is a few. So you can understand people's behavior. I mean, it may seem unusual behavior because their strategies aren't very good, but the basic need one can understand. The basic need of being loved, to feel secure and respect. So to provide this is just a really incredible gift. It's not something that you can fake, because it's a feeling. It's love itself. Somebody can really tell if you're faking it. If you don't feel this with someone. So you have to be capable of giving fearlessness to another. You must have genuine confidence that there really is nothing to fear. You have to have that confidence, because love actually is built into the reality, the order of reality. That's just a part of reality as well. So there's nothing to fear. So it's not just something that's a good idea, to offer this to people if you can, but rather that you feel it in your bones and it comes forth in you from practice, from a lot of practice. So, and knowing that reality is inherently generous, that's an important thing that we need to know. And loving certainly doesn't mean that bad things can't happen. So you feel protected, but doesn't mean you're not going to have loss, you're not going to have pain, you're not going to have shame necessarily. But when you're fearless, bad things happen and you're still okay. You can accept them. You can accept these things as part of life. And in fact, perhaps the part and parcel of life, of the road ahead for a bodhisattva. And so it's a capacity to be able to hold these really difficult things, the most essential things, loss and death, old age and sickness. But you can accept them and you can be okay. It doesn't destroy you. So bodhisattva fearlessness doesn't deny this catastrophe. It just recognizes its inevitability. And we know this. I'll repeat this again later, but we know that this is in existence. things exist and then they cease to exist. So this is part of the teachings, right? Impermanence. So Norm Fisher says, if you feel fearlessness, it's easy to give as a gift. The difficult part is getting to the point of your own fearlessness. But as I say, bodhisattvas know that because things cease, it's actually, that's the nature of existence, and it's actually the beauty, the bounty of things. We gain an appreciation for things, knowing that it may not be here tomorrow. So fearlessness of the bodhisattva is very solid, it's very large, it's tough. And when you feel it, it's easy to give to someone else when you truly feel it. And when you meet someone who actually has this capacity, you're going to notice it. You're going to notice it. And so the two prime examples of that, great teachers, is the Dalai Lama, who despite a lifetime of tragedy, he's lost his country, he's in exile, forced into exile. Many of his people have been lost. His culture, there's been an attempt to decimate his culture, and the destruction of so many statues and religious places. So he's been through all of that, and yet he has a cheerfulness and a lightheartedness about this. You hear this about when people go to visit him, but this is his nature. So he has this sort of fearlessness, and it's kind of, well, the cheerfulness is contagious for sure. The other person is Suzuki Roshi himself. Similar, that students say that when they are with him, when they're in his presence, that it's felt good to them to be themselves. What a gift that is, right? That you can be yourself around somebody. And, yeah, just be yourself and feel good about it. And although Suzuki Roshi didn't say much, he naturally treated others as a sacred, mysterious person in which he was very interested. You know that. Just love that. So maybe as we as students of the way and on the Bodhisattva path, maybe we won't be able to reach this level. Maybe we won't. But what we can aspire to, we can aspire to it. And we can love more tomorrow than we're doing today. It's part of the aspiration is to always go towards. Not necessarily never, you may not make it, but you're going towards it. That's the whole deal. So there was a reference also in Norman Fisher's book to the Prajnaparamita Sutra in 8,000 lines. And there's a quote here that, but one who, that says becomes, this is, it's going to go on after this, but this is just a stanza, but one who becomes unconcerned about anything that may be dear or undear, if when he renounces head, hands, and feet, his thoughts remain undejected, he becomes one who gives up all he has, always cowed. So in this sutra, the Prajnaparamita Sutra, 8,000 lines, any version of it, I'm sure, fear is a crucial theme. And the constant refrain is, if a person hears of the emptiness of everything and doesn't get frightened, depressed, or freaked out, but instead is glad and contented, then we know that person is a bodhisattva, is a true bodhisattva. In the case of giving, if the bodhisattva realizes he or she could give up anything and everything because there is nothing to give up. And this realization makes her or him happy, not afraid, not dejected, not cowed, then he or she is a true bodhisattva. This teaching acknowledges, wisely and surprisingly acknowledges fear, right? This is all about our general fears. It's as an essential ingredient of our personalities. So there's this humanness, right? Our human qualities. And we identify with our vulnerable self. We think we are, we think we possess what we are not, and what we do not possess, right? Thus, fear of loss and possessions is essential to us. Where is coming from? So when basic identity is challenged, naturally fear arises, often masked by anger. To practice the perfection of giving, we have to overcome this fear, realizing there really is nothing to fear. Everything is empty in the first place. So this doesn't mean we should wait until we are fearless to practice generosity. Of course not. We need to start right now, as we are, and the path of practice brings us slowly but surely closer to fearlessness. And teachings like this can seem daunting, but they're not intended to scare us off. Rather, it's to encourage us by indicating the depth and the breadth, the range of what we aspire to. So I wanted to just give a few thoughts that I had after reading this, because I was really impacted by it in many ways. The first thing I thought of is, I thought of my teacher, one of my teachers, Flint Sparks. And I remembered how in one time in my life, I was very aggrieved, probably over the death of my father and my sister-in-law, one of them. And I didn't think that I just didn't think my grief would ever end. And I felt somewhat submerged by it. And I don't know how he did it exactly. That Flint, it's pretty tricky. But at some point, I was able to say, yes, I am grieving, and know that and feel that. But at the same time, I could say, but I'm okay. I am okay. Which, brings you up from the submersion. Do I have total fearlessness? No, I don't think so. But we make movements along the continuum, right? And that's a big one, I think it was for me. Being able to hold these two contradictory sort of things. I'm okay and I'm terribly aggrieved. So I also thought about Flint as well. In his discussions about vulnerability in inquiry, that's what it's all about. It's us being vulnerable and being open with our vulnerability with other people. For one thing, it has an impact on them. But just being vulnerable with that kind of strips off some of that fear. It's also a way how to open up our life. That's part of it. And how Flint talks a lot, and over time, has talked a lot about removing blockages to love. This is, again, part of the recipe for having the capacity, more and more capacity for love. And in that, also approaching this stage of fearlessness, having the capacity to have so much love that you can have an impact on another person and know that have them know that they matter. So, where are we on time? I'll just say, there's a lot of information on how to generate generosity. And certainly his chapter on generosity discusses it. And I was going to talk about it, but I decided not to. I wanted to focus on this instead. But so you can consult this book or a lot of other books on generosity in general. I'll just mention a few things that are useful in this process. And that is, one is being aware, and I think once we start this practice, we do this, we start becoming aware of our attitudes, what our attitudes actually are, and that they are changeable, they're not solid. And we become aware of this simply by noticing, paying attention to our responses, our reactions to things, when we feel tightened up, or when our breath gets short, or when we get clenches in our shoulders, or all those are signals from the body, right? Telling us, giving us information, and of tightening down, closing up, becoming stingy, becoming small-minded. And by noticing it, that's the first step, becoming aware of it. And the second step, of course, is trying to notice it more quickly, sooner after you know it's occurred, and stopping it, eventually stopping the attitude as we were going off the cliff of getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So, of course, meditation is very useful. It's probably the best way, because you sit, and what you have to do to sit when you're sitting, but look at your mind and all the things it's churning out. So it's a perfect place to do that. And also having this community of friends that can also help you, support you on that path. And another aspect of this opening is realizing it's the recognition of, or maybe to say it a different way, to practice generosity is actually to appreciate the natural abundance of being. The inherent generosity of time and space. Space is one that's particularly easier, I guess, to appreciate. Seems pretty clear to me. And also the ongoing unfolding of life. There is generosity in that. So these are precious gifts. Life is generous and is always making new life. It's expansive and abundant. And it's never stingy or small-minded. It keeps on going and rising up wherever it has a chance. And so you don't have to create life, you just have to let it in, let it in, let it in. Let go of your attitudes. So I think that the harsh winter that we just had here in Texas is a good example of life being generous. So we had, these major freezes, and for those of us who who have yards and gardens and things. And even if you don't have them, you can look around the neighborhoods and everywhere. And there was so much destruction, so many freezes, trees breaking and plants apparently gone. And lo and behold, when the springs come, the majority of the things have come back. I've been astounded. Now, they may not have come back in the same form. The whole structure of the branches and the leaves are gone forever, but they're coming up from the roots. Now, not everything, but so many things. I've been really astonished. And that's life. Again, reoccurring, coming out of apparently nothing, right? Coming out of the soil, and there it is, everywhere. It's just a marvel. So the weeds and vines. Weeds and vines are the first ones always to come. They clutter up the yard. So nature is prolific. It's prolific in bursting forth. It's prolific when a tree topples down in the forest and begins to decompose. It becomes food for the insects, the algae, and the fungi, bacteria, all the trees and plants around it. So in just contemplating this sort of thing, to me, is kind of heart-opening and realizing that we are washed day to day with generosity of life around us. And it's hard sometimes to think about that. We're thinking about whatever we're thinking about, writing a paper, something. And yet there it is, if we just take the time to look at it. So, and it keeps going. It's never going to stop. The life on this planet, we're losing species rapidly. And human beings have some hand in that. And it's a terrible tragedy, and it should be stopped. And on the other hand, life will continue. It may not be as it is right now. It won't be. But something will take the place of what's here now. Projecting in the future, we don't know that. But let's just say it's my assumption. So it's important that we look at ourselves, human beings, as not something outside of life, but rather intimately. I mean, we're in it. We're as much alive, involved in life as everything else. And life will continue even if we do not. So, anyway, I think I'm going to close with that. I'm going to close with that. And there's more to say about generosity, a lot more to say. But I'll stop here. And I thought what we would do, we would get into groups of yeah, let's do it in pairs. That'll be good. And maybe we'll have a group of 3 here. And so what I would like to do with that is go back to this idea of, one second. This. Okay, so in your partners, we'll come back. Let's come back at probably need 10 minutes would probably be enough, I would think. 10 minutes, or just make it at 10:45. Whoever, is that you? Yeah, Maria? 10:45, and this is the instruction. And maybe we can type it on the chat. You probably won't need it, but just in case. So what we're going to be doing is talking about a person. Each person is going to talk about a person or people that you've known during your life who have offered you this kind of generosity of the fearlessness. So that is specifically let you know that you mattered, or they gave you respect, made you feel cared for, made you feel secure in this loving reality and ultimately protected. Or conversely, if you'd rather do it the opposite, who have you offered this kind of love and fearlessness to in your life? So either direction or both if you want to, if there's time. So I guess, I was just going to say, does anybody have any comments about talking about that, or that they might have learned from their other person that might have inspired them in some way, or that's the conversation.
You did. I,
Okay.
David and I, we both agreed that the people in our lives that elicited that space for us were also people that could be vulnerable with us and we would accept our help.
That's a wonderful observation. Yeah. That's a really wonderful observation. Did you guys hear that all right?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful.
And so the idea was that not only were they a certain way for us, they also could be vulnerable, and that made us feel seen and important and valuable. So it was a joint thing. It wasn't just coming from one person one way.
That's great. That's great. Great observation. Anything else?
Sorry.
Oh, go on.
I just wanted to mention something that Becky talked about that I thought was so important, and that was someone in her life that she used to work with who was very different from her, and she wouldn't anticipate being generous maybe with her, or just very different from her. And in a time of her life when she was withdrawing from people, this person just came and said, you are coming out with me, we are going for tea. And it's just one of those unexpected sources of generosity, I guess you could say it that way. I thought that was kind of very special and required some openness, I guess, a lot on Becky's part to not reject the offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Some fearlessness in not rejecting the offer
Yeah.
Yes.
and in making the offer.
Kim, did you have your hand up a minute ago?
I did. There's a quality of in the situations that came to my mind where someone was really, really honest with me. And I respected that so much. And that was such a gift. But there's also the fearlessness quality, because when you're honest with someone, they might reject you. So we're dancing around and not saying what's on our mind. I'm looking at Rosemary. There was one time when she was very honest with me about, a question she had, why did I do X or something? And I really appreciated that. And those are the times that really just really mean something, I think, when someone is that way.
Yeah. Clarifying, sure. Okay. All right, it looks like that's it. Shall we close?